Hi, we're going to talk about the number 5 thing in the packet, Unit 10 on World War II, about the battles and the events. We're just going to talk about the major importance things. All right, so we'll start with the attack on Pearl Harbor. That's over here, just off this map actually in my classroom. But uh, the major thing is it drew the U.S. into the war and it unified the U.S. against the Axis power, JIG, Japan, Italy, Germany. Okay, so anyway, that was on December 7th, 1941, and then December 8th, 1942, President Roosevelt asked Congress to declare war on Japan, the Empire of Japan, and then 4 days later, Italy and Germany declared war on the United States. The next battle is the Battle of the Java Sea, and the Java Sea is right down here. The British held Singapore, and the Japanese had taken it. If you get a chance to go to Singapore, I got a chance to go. It's worth it. Go see it. We took the World War II tour. All right, this is the Java Sea, this area. All right, so the goal of the Japanese is to work their way down here through the Malay Peninsula, take over Sumatra, which is now Indonesia, Borneo, etc. And they're working towards getting to Australia. That's the big goal because they have lots of resources, lots of bauxite ore for airplanes. You know, bauxite is made into aluminum. Maybe you didn't know, but you do now. There's lots of gold, there's lots of silver, there's lots of workers, lots of natural resources. So that's the goal. So the Japanese are able to extend here. This green line is actually the extent of the Japanese control in the Pacific. And it's quite extensive. And you can see that pretty well on your maps. The United States lost the Battle of the Java Sea. We were unsuccessful, and we lost the Philippines over here as well to the Japanese here. And a guy named General MacArthur had to leave, unfortunately abandoned a lot of people at the Battle of the Java Sea, which led to the Bataan Death March, which is a very unfortunate situation, obviously. So with the Bataan, but we better get to the Battle of the Coral Sea first of all. Okay, because that's how it is on your list. Okay, the Battle of the Coral Sea took place over here. This is Coral Sea. It's really close to Australia, and was an Allied victory. The U.S. lost an aircraft carrier, but it stopped a Japanese advance on Australia. As you can see, where Australia is here. And after this time, then the Japanese really, it was their first defeat in over 300 years in a Navy battle. So anyway, that was pretty harsh for them. We'll go back to the battle, or excuse me, the Bataan Death March, which is an event. The Americans and Filipino troops that were left behind because MacArthur pulled out really quickly. They couldn't get evacuated, and so they were forcibly marched in a death march to Camp O'Donnell, where there were major atrocities. Hopefully, you watched a little video on that from day 5. All right, we're moving on to the Battle of Midway Island. Midway is right over here, and it's midway between Hawaii over here and Japan over here. And this is a major battle in 1942 that the Allies were able to be successful at winning. It's a movie that came out in 2019 as well. Definitely we're seeing starring Woody Harrelson and Nick Jonas. But one way or the other, the naval battle of Midway was a turning point. Some would say the turning point in the Pacific, because no longer, this is the green line is here. The Japanese wanted to extend further. They could not extend further in the expansion. They only started to get smaller and smaller, less and less territories as the U.S. was island hopping, hopping from island to island to try and get closer to mainland Japan, so that the Allied forces would be able to drop bombs and potentially invade. That's right. Okay. The one after that is the Battle of Guadalcanal on page 805. Guadalcanal is in the Solomon Islands, and it's a series of islands as well where it was hard fought, really from January of 42 into 1943. It says that it fell to Japan in January of 1942, but it was regained by the U.S. in 1943. These islands were occupied by American Marines and Allied forces by December of 1943, and this is so key to get that island hopping campaign going on. All right, after the Battle of Guadalcanal, we'll switch over to the European theater. Get to walk across over here. And the European theater and North Africa, we have El Alamein, which is located right here. The Suez Canal is here, and if you can get to the Suez Canal, then you can control oil coming through the Red Sea, the Gulf of Aden, and of course the Arabian Sea, Saudi Arabia, etc. Oil. So anyway, the Germans wanted to control it, and the British did control it. So it was a success for the Allied forces. The U.S. wasn't involved in it too very much because this was pretty early battle. It was in 1942, but Bernard Montgomery was successful in being able to control North Africa. And so once we could control, the Allies could control North Africa, then we didn't have to worry about having this coast. We had this to our back, and that would help us to be able to invade Italy. All right, we have the Battle of Stalingrad to mention over here. Stalingrad is over. It's in between the Caspian and the Black Sea. It's right here. And Hitler, this is Germany. He had occupied Poland, and he's thinking he's marching across. He wants to control the Black Sea for sure, because it's the warm water port for the Soviets. All right, he wants to be able to control that. And Stalingrad, well, the people of the Soviet Union just felt like they should back up, and they hold up at the Battle of Stalingrad. They destroyed any supplies that the Germans could use. The Germans overextended their supply lines, and they lost the Battle of Stalingrad somewhat because of the Russian winter as well. All right, after that, we have the Battle of Italy. In 1943, Allied forces decided to go from Tunisia across to Sicily and then into Italy, and that put Mussolini on the run, definitely. So an Allied victory there. The next one after that, we have the Battle of Atlantic. I should say a really well-known general named Patton. George Patton helped in this too. He's a tank corps commander. All right, the Battle of the Atlantic. Here's the Atlantic Ocean here. So very important for the Germans. They have a lot of U-boats in the North Sea, and so they're sending out these U-boats to prevent supplies from getting into Great Britain, because Great Britain and the Soviets, these are not controlled by the Axis powers; they're Allied powers, and Hitler wants to be able to control Great Britain, and so stopping the supplies from bringing it is challenged. So anyway, with the invention of sonar, it makes it a lot easier to cut down the German subs, the U-boats. All right. D-Day takes place on June 6, 1944. That's a major Allied victory, and we see people coming, the Allied forces coming across to Normandy, which is right here. Hitler kind of guessed it might be at Pas de Calais, which is a little bit closer. There's only 35 miles distance, but anyway, Patton was set up as a sort of a decoy over here, but Allied forces, the largest amphibious invasion in world history, took place June 6, 1944. All right, and that set us on a foothold, the Allies on a foothold to get to Germany. So we had the German-held lands. There's a western front, there's an eastern front, and a southern front. We didn't really have to worry about a northern front because Sweden was neutral, and then Norway had a lot of people that were resisting. Finland as well. They're more worried about the Soviets, I guess you could say. The last major battle that I had on the list was the Battle of the Bulge, and this is between France, Belgium, Luxembourg, where the Germans are trying in 1944 to push a bulge into the Allied line as the Allies are advancing, heading to Berlin. And the Germans it ends in January of 1945, but in December of 1944 into 1945, they're trying to push a bulge into that line. So those are some of the major theaters of action discussion things for World War II. Okay,